Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I have another painting tutorial. Today we're going to paint or learn how to paint my version of kind of like Warpstone slash poison slash nurgle non-metallic green blades. There are many better guides out there, but this is how I approach it. I think it's very beginner friendly and hopefully you guys enjoy the tutorial. So let's start with the base model. I primed it white as I just prefer to use a white primer. You can spray it black. Actually, it'll save a step for you. But with the white primer, I'm going to grab some Citadel Contrast Black Legion and just base coat the blade. I think usually for this, one solid coat is all that's needed. Just let it dry, probably wait 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're ready to move on to the next step. Once the Black Legion contrast is dry, we're going to grab the Citadel base color Moot Green, and basically you're going to semi-base coat the blade. You can look at the video and follow along for how I approach it. So, as you all know, non-metallic, the GW style from many other fantastic painters, you want to give it a more reflective look. The way I paint is kind of more free-flowing. So what I mean by this is you don't really care if there's a real direction of the light. Just try to alternate the pattern. So what you can see is I painted the tip of the blade green, then the opposite side of the blade, the midsection green, and then going back to the original side of the blade. So just by alternating it, you're going to get some very visually interesting, I guess, color. And my approach usually is to be very liberal about it. So if you do want to make it more realistic, go for it. But I go for a more free-flowing approach. Once the Lupercal Green base coat is done, we're going to grab Warpstone Glow from GW. And you're going to highlight the original parts you painted the Lupercal Green. But when you base coat it, most of my mixes are actually maybe 1-to-1 paint to water. So you're going to see how very milky and it looks very bright, but I assure you it'll dry much more muted. So just go back and forth and play with it. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm grabbing the paint and I'm dragging it to the portion I want it to be very saturated. So for the tip of the blade, I dragged it downwards. For the midsection, I let it kind of, not really pool, but let it sit in the middle. So just, I guess you can follow along for how I'm doing it for the blade, just focusing on parts I want it to be rich in color. So here's the blade once you have maybe just 2 coats of the Warpstone Glow built up. And then I did go around the edges off camera with the Warpstone Glow just to border it. So after that step, we're going to grab Moot Green and Warpstone Glow from Citadel, make it a 50-50, and we're going to apply it again to the, basically it's highlighting, but each step you're reducing the amount of, I guess, area you're covering. You do want the previous layers to kind of bleed through. If you don't do that, you're basically wasting a step. But again, you can see, I guess when I paint, I kind of more sketch the highlights in. Again, this mix is 50-50, but it's also watered down a little bit. So when you apply it, it looks very bright, but once it dries, it does tone down quite a bit. So once that's dry, this is what it looks like again. So you can tell the color is muted down quite a bit, but there's a nice transition that's now building up. So just aim for a look that you're very satisfied with. Once that step is done, we're going to grab pure Moot Green. And again, we are just focusing now to most likely the center of each portion of the green blades. So for the tip of the blade, you're going to see me basically only highlighting maybe a quarter or a little bit over a quarter of the blade. This step, I want you guys to take your time. It shouldn't be stressful. It should be very enjoyable. Again, my paint style really isn't focused on the cleanest transition. It's just more for visual pop. And, you know, if you're stressing about it, take your time with it. It really is enjoyable. I'd say once you're at this step of the phase, the last couple highlights really go by really fast. So as you can tell from that middle section too, I'm not, trying to get a beautiful blend. I just simply drew a few lines going down the middle. When you put the model, on the tabletop, it's so far away that it gives the illusion that it's blended very nicely. And then once again, we're just gonna edge just the sharpest edges with the pure Moot Green. So for this stage, we're gonna grab Vallejo Off-White and Moot Green, make a 50-50 mix and add some water into it. And just as the other steps, we are again focusing on the sharpest edges. So for the blade here, I'm basically only focusing on that very tip portion. We are going to also add some very subtle dots, mainly to the sharpest edges. This just gives the impression that the model is, or the sword is very sharp, or the Warpstone, or whatever this blade is made out of. As I mentioned before, this part is entirely up to you. You can add as many white highlights on the sharpest edges, or you can make it very subtle and just put it on a few portions of the blade. This step is entirely up to you. I just decided to choose all the sharp edges, and when you're highlighting it, take a break, take a look at it, and then if you think you need more, add more. If you think you're done, step away and then move on to the next step. So this step is actually extra. I don't really recommend it because I think at the end result you don't really notice it, but I made another mix, 2 parts of Vallejo Off-White to 1 part Moot Green, and I just added 1 more highlight into this model. I think for my paint style, it's entirely up to the painter, right? And I've been preaching it this whole video, so you guys can actually skip the step. For me personally, I think it helps the white pop out a bit more. Sometimes on my other models it doesn't, but for this model, because it's my Demon Prince, I decided to go 1 step extra further just to make sure it's very nice and has a good transition. So again, just focusing on the sharpest edges, and you can see from the video, it's really popping out now. It's giving the blade a nice shape, and the edges do look extremely sharp. And finally, we are grabbing pure Off-White from Vallejo, and you are trying to put small dots just to the edges you think will pop. So you're gonna notice me, I actually do put a random dot in the middle of the blade where I have those little Moot Green lines. This step, really have fun with it, guys. Put it very subtly, but it can help give some volumetric highlights, or you can just put it on the edges. This step entirely up to you. So take your time with this step. This should be very rewarding, as after all that long effort, the blade is finally done. And there we have it, guys. Here's the completed Warpstone / poison / nurgle blade in all its glory. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. This blade honestly took only 15 minutes from start to finish, so it's very simple. This is not by no means meant to be like competition level. This is just a very nice tabletop standard to knock out armies, because as we all know, Warhammer Fantasy armies have many models, and this is just a quick way to get a nice little effect on either characters or whole regiments. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and comment and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.